No, you're not. I'll just move this. Probably get a smaller binder next. Yes. The city.
Greg Smith is here? Got it, okay. Great.
Two.
There's Vito.
Yeah, but that's not all for wax. It's for the entire portfolio.
But I want to wait for the general manager.
So it's, you know, if it were just for wax, we'd have it all. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone. Please silence your phones during the entire meeting, and if you must speak, please step out. Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair, board members, General Manager. There is one member of the public wishing to provide comments on item number 1. Ms. McKay. And can you assist Ms. McKay or take the microphone to her either way?
Okay, I'll just stub it into the front.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Nellie McKay from Patterson Houses in the Bronx. And we've been having a problem there. And I never complained tonight as much as I complained at housing from December. I have all the ticket numbers and the time and the date. January the 1st, the 10th day was the last day I had hot water in my apartment. I rang the bell this morning, the neighbors don't have hot water. Is that a new boiler? Hot water tank y'all put in? And I heard some of the workers said the pipe busted. You can't put a new a water tank over old pipes. If you're gonna put in a new water tank, put new pipes in. Everything has to be new. And this is what's wrong with NYCHA. You know, it's keep on putting new material on top of old material. That don't work. And I'm a Southern woman, and I don't like to I heated water 50 years ago, and I'm 90 years old. I've been heating water, washing the dishes. This is not for me. No one have to knock on my door and say, pay your rent, Nellie, because my rent is paid every month. And I think we deserve more service than this. Now, I don't know whether you have an office down here or someone over the water system. The tenant supervisor, Monday, I didn't see no sign, because I would have been at the meeting last night. And when I came out this morning, it was a meeting. I called Mr. White, and he said the meeting was last night. You can't put up a sign a day before or the same day and say we're going to have a meeting. It was talking about the hot water. Goes in the shower, the water's warm. You get halfway, finish all the suds, and then like somebody's pouring ice water down your back. No. You know, one time I went on a one-woman rent strike, but I had my money. That's reason I'm still in NYCHA. If I can get the tenants together, because this is not fair. Someone have to do something. And I'm coming down here to ask. And that's the problem in Patterson. But the problem now I have with Mr. Carson, he was here on the 16th. Did you know he was here?
Yes, ma'am. I did know.
We want him down here at this office so we can talk to him. Who is he to say he'd like to see more people move out of NYCHA? You know, a lot of people, I'm a community worker, they like NYCHA, but they want NYCHA to be fixed up so it can be really a decent place to live. I wouldn't move out of NYCHA. If you get, of course, if you buy me a co-op and pay cash for it, I might do it. But I love my apartment. I love the community. I love the neighbors, and I work in it. I'm here to work with NYCHA. Now, I don't want to have to come back again about hot water, but I will be here every month. God give me the strength until we get Mr. Carson here, because the money was, I keep it saying, allocated for NYCHA. We want it to be used for NYCHA, fix up. And also, there should be some money to set up workshops to let these people go back to workshops, train them how to, some of these people, how to live in NYCHA. And I mean, how long do you have to keep it talking? How long you have to keep saying the same thing over and over again? Mr. Royce, I'm here to work with you. You came here to work with us. Let us work together. Let us get Mr. Carson here. And let us sit down and talk. We don't want this money. We don't want Peter the boy from Poland like 1965. We want everything that we're supposed to get. And thank God the guys is working beautiful with the ramps. Thank God for that. It was a long, hard job, but they getting it done. And I thank for it, for that part. But hot water is the biggest problem right now.
Okay. Do you want to have me take your tickets, please?
Oh,
I can make a copy and then...
No, you can have it. See, I always
right.
save a copy for myself.
Oh, okay.
Because when I say I call,
Got it.
then people say, oh, where's the number? I have the number and
Okay,
the
now.
time. Can you read it all?
Yes, I can.
Well, thank
it's
you
much better
very-
handwriting than I have, so
Thank you very much.
thank you. And,
And,
ooh,
and thank you and everybody.
And
And
we'll get
may
some
God
hot
give us our good health and our right mind.
all right, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, no, that's fine. You have a right to express yourself, especially when you're not getting the service you think you should be getting.
I mean, I never complained to the hot water. No hot water.
Well, let's find out what's going on, and then we can talk about that.
40 years ago, I took a hot bath in number 3 tub and Lard soap, and my mother had to make the Lard soap. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get here.
Go ahead.
I'll wait till she
Yeah.
Nicole, before you start, I just want to address Ms. McKay's issue. So we did have some problems at Patterson recently with the 2 mobile units that were installed as part of the capital project to replace the heating plant there. It caused a disruption in one building of heat service and in another building of water service. The repairs were made to the 2 mobile units. What the recommendation was from the heating department, and we're working with capital, is to install a 3rd mobile unit at Patterson, right, as a backup, like, as a contingency plan. So yes, there was a minor disruption of service recently. Again, it was acted on quickly between capital and the heating department.
check on her tickets if they were related to
Absolutely.
that outage and make sure.
If it's buildings 12 or 13, then yes, absolutely, those are the two buildings that we had service.
Okay,
So Javier's in the back speaking with his vacation.
great. Thank you.
That concludes, Chair, that concludes the public comments portion. We will proceed with the regular calendar. The first order of business is to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, December 18th, 2019. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you. Chair, you may now proceed with the chair's report.
We're going to have two reports, one from HR and one from Capital. Just a quick update on some high-level things. We had a city council hearing, and since we last met, it went well. I think it was on winter preparedness and heat, and if you're interested in details on that, we can talk to it. In addition to myself, Joey and Brian testified, and we had significant support staff there to help us with that. And I think the hearing went pretty well, all things considered, so it was a good first introduction to council. We've had our monthly meeting with the SDNY and HUD, and that was last week. We had Hunter Kurtz was up in Washington, of course, Southern District is here, and it's the city and ourselves, and we went through the status of the various projects that we're working on together with the monitor, specifically the action plans, and we also began to introduce how we intend to begin the work of the reorganization plan, and we'll brief the board on that probably at the next meeting to give you a sense of how we're going to engage all the different stakeholders in developing the reorganization plan. And then the last high-level thing I'll mention is that we are working diligently with the monitors team on the action plans and trying to move them towards approval. We have some preliminary sign-offs on the elevator plan, but that's still pending. We don't have official approval yet, and we're working on the other areas. And then with that, I wanted to ask the general manager, did you want to add anything today, Vito? From your side at this point?
No,
Okay. And then let's go in right to the HR and capital updates, so please.
Line encompasses all of the titles that provide direct services at the property. It's caretakers, supervisors of caretakers, supervisors of grounds, maintenance workers, HAs, superintendents, assistant superintendents, managers, and assistant managers. As you can see, at the beginning of 2019, first pay period, we had a deficit of over 400 in frontline titles. My team has been working with budget and operations to get that deficit down, and now we have a deficit of fewer than 50 in all of the frontline titles. So we've made a lot of progress in that area. I lost it somehow. The second slide represents new headcount, what's been allocated for 2020. This has been allocated primarily among the HUD agreement level departments. It includes 358 new positions. As you can see, about a third of that is already filled, primarily in heating, but there have been some positions filled across the other HUD agreement level departments. There's another third where we have begun the hiring process, meaning that a title's been selected, a JO has been submitted. And there's been some preliminary screening for applicants. And the final third are yet to be processed, and that means that there's some piece of information that's yet to be determined, either what title they're in or what the job description is going to be or something like that. And that concludes my update. Are there any questions? Yes.
Would it show the people who might have been in previous positions that moved to heating or moved to other areas? Is that part of the hiring? The numbers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody was a caretaker and they moved to heating or vice versa?
That's not captured in this report. We could do a separate report and follow up.
Okay, I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, we do, it's a great question. We do have a very high internal promotion rate, and we do promote a lot of caretakers up to HPTs and HPTs up to maintenance workers. Unfortunately, this breakdown is not that granular, so I don't have that information right now.
No
And
problem.
these are mostly new slots that we're filling. This is an additional count.
Right, but if I can, correct me please if I'm wrong, but the 70 new HPTs that we hired at the beginning of peak season all came from our caretaker population.
Almost
The vast
entirely.
majority of them.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yes, well, they went through
But
training.
you were able to backfill all those caretakers.
Yes,
Yes.
right, in
Yes.
fact, we are over headcount slightly right now on caretakers, and we're trying to maintain them to anticipate attrition losses.
Correct.
So now, break down, for me, maybe I'm just not getting it. So they're really technically not new hires, all of
You
them.
know,
These will be.
These will be new hires, so
Yes,
this
so-
is not part of what he is speaking about. In other words, you now have maybe a caretaker that wants to go into, to become an HPT, or to go into another field of work. Now, that number is not included in these hirings. These hirings are
No.
strictly new people that we're taking on with the new budget.
So when
That's what I
when
wanna
the
be
board
clear
adopted the
about.
budget in December, we had three parts. We said we were gonna close the vacancy gap
Right.
that we had at the beginning of the year, and we did that. We said we were gonna add headcount critical to compliance, and we're in the process of doing that. And then we're looking at the budget, and we hope to bring on another tranche of folks later this year, maybe as early as May, we'll begin, because we budgeted to bring on additional staff in 2 phases. So what is here today on this slide is the first phase, and almost all of this will be hired right into the compliance demands of the agreement. And then the second phase, we'll be updating the board on as we go after it. But these are attempting to increase headcount in the field. So once we took care of the vacancies, in 2 steps, we want to increase both the technical folks in the field as well as some of the other job titles.
So I take it that then the numbers that are required to run a development will change for the better? Because many of our developments are short of either managers, supervisors,
Sure.
caretakers, HPTs, and they don't keep up the standard that once used to be NYCHA.
So I would say there'll be some improvement. I don't want to represent there's going to be a massive overhaul, but I think your comment speaks to a condition that Vito and I have talked about quite a bit, which is that we're thin in the field given the conditions in the field. So we're going to do one of these each month and update you so you can see where we are. And when we go into the reorganization planning process, which will be the next 15 weeks, one of the things we want to look to do is what's the right size staff for the field given the conditions we have, and then how do we pay for that? So this is a first step towards putting resources in the field, but there's much more to do before we would be able to say to you, Commissioner, that oh, we have enough housing assistants or enough property managers. That's going to take us a little while. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
But I definitely want to see that.
Yes, yeah, that's, we did a workshop in December with staff and residents, actually, where we went through an exercise of coming up with staffing for 2 properties. And we're gonna do more of those, and almost to a team, there were 4 teams, everyone added staff to the properties in a whole variety of ways, including skilled trades. So we're going to have a larger discussion about what sits out there at the field level as part of this reorganization. So that's coming. Yes, sir?
Just to piggyback over, like you said, our development in particular, right? We've had, what, 4 managers in 5 months?
5 managers in 6 months.
5 managers in 6 months, so when they get there, the assessment of staff, to get things rolling, and to, the familiarity with tenants in this situation, stuff like that is really very difficult.
It is,
Yeah, and,
yeah.
because we're at the same, property manager's office, so.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I went there and I said, blue face, and the manager said, hello, I'm not gonna be here, I'm just saying hello. You know, I'm just saying, it's just, you know, so.
No, it's the staffing at the field level, we have to address. I was out at site, we did a site visit last night, and I was talking to a superintendent, and she'd been there, I think she'd been there like 4 months. But the thing about that conversation was, she was already focused on some things because she'd had the time to do that. So one of the things she had been doing is installing entryway lighting under the canopy, where it previously was not. And those buildings that had it were quite bright, and the entryways were quite well lit. And the second thing she asked for was cameras in the lobbies. So the folks who are out there that we can keep at a property begin to think about those improvements, and we need to do that universally. And I think that's part of what the reorg has to be about, is how many people should be in the field directly at the site and supported at the property.
And I would just ask you,
Yes.
in terms of how long will you overlap them? Like, someone shouldn't get pulled until they finish, you know, you OJT them for a while before you just.
Yeah, and I think that, yes.
What is that, and that change your staffing dynamic?
It would, and I wouldn't represent to you today that we're at the capacity to do that.
Right.
That would be one of the desired outcomes, I think, of the reorganization, is to say, okay, we now have enough staff to manage or do maintenance at a level we need to do. Any other comments on this?
I don't have anything.
All right, thank you so
Thanks.
much. All right.
Where do I punch this? Oops, there we go. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair, Vice Chair, board members, General Manager, Corporate Secretary, NYCHA staff, residents, and the public. My name is Stephen Lupsey, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Capital Projects Division, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you the Capital Projects Division funding. And this is the federal, state, and city. And also, we're going to talk about the obligations, how we spend those funds, as well as the expenditures, the spending of those funds. So this is our fiscal year 2020 all capital funding. The city funds are about 1.37 billion. State is 450 million, and the federal is 400 million. 62% of that is city. This is significant. Historically, the yellow wedge, the 18, was all of the capital funds, or the bulk of the capital funds that we received. And what does that mean? That means that in the past, we were able to do 1, 2 heating plants a year. And today, with the funds that we have, we're going to be doing 57 heating plants. And that's not including the EPC and the Recovery and Resiliency Program that brings us up to about 75 heating plants. This is how we're using those funds. Quickly, restoration of building systems, that's heating plants, gas risers, underground steam distribution. The consent decree, rehabilitation of building envelopes, mostly the roofing program, the local law 11, comprehensive modernization, renovation of building interiors, which I'll talk a little bit later in the city funding piece, security and revitalization of grounds and waste management. So, in terms
pipeline we look at this as a 5-year capital plan. And we come with this in a very comprehensive approach. When we're funding 5 years down the road, one must think of the future and not the present. And so we try not to do replacement in kind. We try to do things that will bring us into the future. We look at that overall based on the physical needs and the operational data. And the P&A is an amazing tool. Capital, before we had the P&A, which is directed by HUD, we would rely on the requests of individual developments. So if the development did a good job of getting their paperwork in and getting all of that information, the funds kind of went to that development. Today, we have an asset tool. This evaluates the entire portfolio equally, rating those elements from a 5 to 1 score. Now, capital doesn't use the P&A in a bubble. We overlay this with the operational data and consultation with operations and maintenance. So to imply that capital and operations do not coordinate with a 5-year plan is an inaccurate and irresponsible comment. We do that on almost all of the portfolio. The next piece is that we combine funding sources. And what do I mean by that? So we have city heating plant. Those are city funds, the $200 million that came in from the city. We're going to redo the heating plants. Well, we're going to leverage some of the federal funds to then do the steam pipe distribution at those sites that need steam pipe distribution replacement. At the same time period, we're looking at our EPCs to allow us to do the heating controls at that same location. And so when we walk away from that development, we've done it a little bit more holistically, and that's where we're combining funding sources to make that work. At the same time period, we're working with operations to help us fix some of the traps and the valves in that same development, again, so the distribution works. And then the last is the agreement, right? That's given us clear priorities on lead, mold, heat, elevators, and pest. So what does that $2.23 billion look like? Well, this is a chart of our funding and also our projects. And as you can see, we hovered around 100 and some odd to 200 projects a year. In the last 3 years, we've now gone to almost 543 projects. And the board has been generous to allow us to use the program managers, and that's where we're helping move that pipeline along. But that's a significant increase in the number of projects and the number of funding that we are receiving at this point in time. So now I'm going to hit the federal piece, and then I'll hit the state piece, and then I'll hit the city piece. This is the federal obligations, and this represents how we're using those funds. Obligation is that we have contracts registered for those funds. So CFR 24905.306, obligations and expenditures for capital fund grants. PHAs have 24 months, 2 years, to obligate 90% of the capital fund grant. Why 24 months? Well, it's simple. The first year of a capital project, we're going to design. And so capital will contract with A&E, architects and engineers, to design the project. Well, it takes about a year for most projects. That gets us into the second year where we procure that, and then we have the contracts for the construction. And that really represents and follows the industry standards. The blue in these pieces illustrates where we hit the 90% target rate. Our goal is roughly around 20 to 22 months. CF 215, that 8 months, was right around Sandy recovery, and so we did a lot of contracts in that first piece to get us up and running, but we run there. The orange illustrates where we are currently. In FY18, we're on track to hit our 90% commitment rate at about 22 months. We're right now hovering around 88 to 89%. And then FY19, those are the 2020 funds that you saw in that first chart. We've just received those funds, and now we're starting to obligate those into the A&E contracts. The next slide is the expenditure. So this is the invoices paid. And again, with the same regulations, we have 48 months to expend 100% of the CF grant. And that also follows industry standard. So as I said, the first year, we're going to obligate a design contract for the design and the architects and engineers. That first year, we're going to start to expend a few of those design services. That's about 10% of an overall construction cost. The second year, we're going to obligate to have a CM contract on place, and then we're going to have the construction contract on place. And that puts us into that 24 mark for obligations. The second to third and fourth year is when we're getting into construction. So that's where we're really going to expend the funds. Let me look at it this way. If I have a construction project that costs about $500,000, the first year of the capital plan is going to be $50,000. That's about 10% of the A&E fees. So when we build out our federal 5-year capital plan, the first year we will only put in $50,000 for that construction phase. The next following years we'll split that up depending on how the construction is set out, and it'll be $200,000 first year, or the next year, and maybe $250,000, and then we'll close out that project. That puts us in track to 2 years of obligation, 4 years to expend. We watch those numbers to make sure that we have enough money for cost overruns. That would be like change orders, possible litigation, the what-ifs, the risk management. And right now, for CF 2017, we're on track to expend the 100%. And CF 18, we're in that first year of construction. So that's where we're at with those funds. That was the federal. Now this is the state. The state funds are really those that were earmarked in 2017 and 2018. So we've been kind of carrying this piece along. We anticipate that those funds will be released by the state now that the monitor is on board and the GDA action plan has been approved by the monitor. NYCHA is currently working on the funding agreement with the state for those funds. Where we're at with that is that the heating plants, we're all allocated for heating plants and elevators. The elevator portfolio is currently in design, and we're starting to obligate those funds. So we'll use federal funds to upfront it, and then the state reimburses us for those funds. The heating portfolio, we're in phase 1 of a design-build program that is currently in the RFQ phase, and I'm very excited because tomorrow is when we get those RFQs back to move us into the RFP phase. So I hit federal, we hit state, and now we're going to hit city. City funds are allocated in 4 sources. The mayoral initiatives, that would be the roofing program, city boilers, local law 11 facade, the neighborhood rat reduction, the mayoral SDNY and HUD agreement funds, city council and borough president discretionary funds. These are the funds that they allocate to us. On the right side of your slide is how the funds are legislatively allocated to us. Okay, now I'm going to speak a little bit about each of those funding pieces. The first one is the mayoral. And I wanted you to kind of look at this. So you've got 10% contingency, the 5% that's managed by, not managed by NYCHA, along with the SDNY and the HUD agreement. So that's about 50% of that overall portfolio. And then you have the 20-year and the 21-year. The term committed is the same term as obligated, in essence.
Are you registering 1.3 this year?
So, yes, yeah. The idea is that we're still following that 2-year, 4-year cycle, but I'm going to talk about rollover. So what you're seeing is a little bit of design and construction happening in each of those years. So the city term is committed for obligation. The 2020 were given to us in 2019, and the 21 is given this summer in 2020. The next slide is a similar breakout. This is the city funds. So really, city council funds, excuse me, city council funds, and then the borough president funds. I'm going to show you a slide, and you're going to say, what is this? Well, this is right now just a placeholder for me to give you a little bit of context between federal and city, and then we'll talk a little bit about this. Federal. So the federal is a 5-year capital plan. It's approved by HUD. In the city, we're allocated it through legislation. Roof funds go to roofs. the federal funds start with the receipt of the CF grant. That could be anywhere from April to August. Yet the fiscal run for city starts in July and ends in June. So our amazing planning team kind of molds those two fiscal years and brings us together into a large capital program, and that's that first slide that you saw. The 5-year capital plan, as I explained, we think of that in the 2-year and the 4-year. So the first year of that $500,000, we only put $50,000 into it. And then the next year you see the construction, and the next year you see the construction. So we're planning out our 5-year program that way. In the city, we actually get all of those funds right up front. So going back to that $500,000 project, the first year was 10% design, the second and third year was construction. We designed the capital plan this way, and the city funds, as I just mentioned, they're all given to us in 1 year, with a few exceptions. But we can't really expend more than 10%, right? Because we have to do the design first before we can do the construction. At the end of the year, there will be a report to NYCHA that will indicate that we haven't spent 90% of that overall grant. That's actually not a bad thing. If you got a report that said that we spent 90% of our grant the first year, that would be taking 3 years of a program and spending it in the first year. That's when you should be concerned. So when we're looking at these funds as they come into our pot, we're really looking at a 3-year program, but we get them all up front, and then the city rolls those funds over year to year. What that also means is what you're seeing this year, we did the 10%, but you're getting the rollover from the following year for the 2 and 3 years of an earlier construction period. The next year, we're going to get a whole new pot of money that we're only going to get the first year of that construction on the last year's 10% and a 10% onto that. So the money is always going to generally grow, but we only can think about this in the 2-year, 4-year cycle, very similar to how the industry works and how the federal government looks at federal funding. I hope that's how we work that.
So that means that we have the money available, but when we're looking at that 100% number, in the first year we're doing design, so we're just actually only going to take the 10% or whatever. The balance of it stays there till we're ready to actually start construction and begin the work, and then we would draw that in the second and third years.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the funding would just roll over rather than
Whatever we
allocated
had,
per year.
If we hadn't spent it all in year 2, and we have another year, it would come in and we'd finish that project, say, in year 3, but also pick up more projects from prior years as they go to execution.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Is that true? So you said that was for city funds.
City.
Is that
Mm-hmm.
also true for other kinds of the capital grants?
The federal capital grant is not. We plan that out, and so we always plan that design the first year, construction the second and third year, so that we were never sitting with a large pot of money in those years. In those years. The state money is a little bit different. The state money will front with federal dollars, and then will be reimbursed by the state. The federal works in a reimbursement program too, but in general, we won't see state money sitting in a bank account for us. So I want to kind of explain obligations and expenditures too, because those are the difference between the federal and the city. So the image that you're seeing, this flow chart, is actually the flow chart or the process by which we can commit or obligate funds. In the federal, we have the board resolution, we sign the contract, funds are committed. City is a little bit different because there's a few more entities that are allowing to watch those funds. And so if I look at that 500 program that I just said, for us to commit that $500 construction project, we would have designed it, then it would have gone to Department of Buildings, it would have gone to OMB for the budget, and this is where this flow chart starts. OMB says that's correct, the budget is right, we put that project out to bid, we receive bids back, we then go for a vendor name check, which you guys hear about every day at the board meeting. After the board approves that contract, we go back to OMB to make sure that that contract meets the budget that they have. The comptroller reviews that they sign, and we register a contract. That process takes about 180 to 300 days. So what that means is it takes us a little bit longer to obligate our city funds than our federal funds. And all of the city agencies are working in this process to make sure that with our partners to have this, but I want you to understand the process by which we, in essence, obligate or commit those funds for contract.
Do you have to go to Mox?
We work with Mox, like with Passport.
So will you have to use Passport?
Yes, we use Passport.
Okay.
And then to expend funds, federal, we have a certified payroll. We basically get the invoice. Expending is the Office of Management and Budget distributes the funds after receipt of an invoice. So why I bring this up is because when you read about NYCHA's obligations and expenditures as they're published by the city, I want you to have all of the information around what makes up those numbers. I'm almost done. Thank you very much for your time. The last two slides, these two slides are our annual spend and our monthly spend. And going forward on a monthly basis, we are going to provide the board with these dashboards showing you where we're at right now. On the left side is CPD's spend by work type, and on the right side is the table showing the funding types, what's been paid out. So as you can see, this is last year's. We paid out in construction and design services $808 million worth of work. Last month, we paid out $67 million worth of construction projects. And we were on track to do that in January and the rest of the months. So I thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, comments, I can answer them here, or my office is always open. Yes?
Good morning. Not really a numbers guy, but I see where this is going on the macro level. And it's very commendable. And seems like, you know, you're cracking every piggy bank, making sure the pennies is there and moving. But from a resident standpoint, right, in the easiest terms, how, with the things you've heard this morning with staffing, trying to get more staff, a lot of staff movement, people place to place. As a resident, say, live in Morris houses or Grant houses, what would this mean to me, aside the numbers, to expect when things that you're doing, that you're going to do with this money, would mean to me in terms of maybe how long my elevators will be fixed, or how long we'll have more staff? The actual disbursement of the services that you're trying to provide here with this money, that's what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this, what, as a resident who might not be, you know, familiar determining numbers, but to understand that the work is, projects are being done, which takes having responsible bidders picked. They finish these contracts that they agreed to do. And the other issues, like I said, what, as a resident, what would you be able to tell me, say, or what would be told to them when to expect some relief based on what you're trying to do?
Just one point of clarification. The operating fund, the staffing that you're talking about is separate. So Steve's group would be impacting all the capital work. So it would not necessarily, his money would not necessarily impact who's managing the property or how many people we have to do the day-to-day work.
So that's excluded?
That's operating budget.
Okay.
I'm going to let Steve answer to how you could look at the physical needs assessment and see what projects are scheduled for this year and the future years.
So, Councilmember Adams, I'm glad that you asked me that question, because it allows me to bring up one very important piece, which is getting the information out to the residents. As you saw that slide earlier, we've gone from 200 projects to 543 projects. That's a lot of work across the capital portfolio. So in the past, we relied a lot on the TAs and those meetings to get the message out of the type of work that was going to be happening in that development. And we're currently looking at a process with all these projects coming on board to have much more resident engagement, to let them know ahead of time the type of work that's going to be happening at their developments, and then the time period in which that happens. And so we're meeting, I'm going to call it the road show. Capital is going to go on a road show to all of the operations meetings, in letting them know the projects that are happening in their borough. All of that information is always provided. It's in charts, and it's in, this is in the 5-year capital plan. These are the things that are going to be happening at your development. But I think it's a lot different if we can go to them and say, okay, at this development, the roofs are going in on this date. They're going to get closed out on this date. We're going to be reaching out to the property managers at this date to have conversations about that construction schedule and the site safety plans. And we're going to be going through that by borough, so that way people on the ground know exactly when the projects are happening, and they know who to contact associated to that. Because if we had a little bit of a hiccup at 200 projects, obviously 543 projects, that little hiccup is going to be much bigger, and I want to make sure that the residents know what's happening. Greg has brought up a number of great opportunities and ideas for us in terms of signage that we can have to make sure that residents know what's happening at your development. So we have local law 11. A lot of times we have to put up sidewalk sheds as per the law 24 hours. That doesn't give us a lot of time to get out there and inform the residents that in 24 hours sidewalk sheds are going to come up, and then what that represents and what that means to the residents. Because there's a lot within that 24 hours that we do. We put up those sidewalk sheds, that's a contract. We're walking around with security to make sure that all of the lighting is correct still, and the cameras that they need are on or moved, and the cameras that they don't are closed down, and the residents know which ones those are. So, but the important part to what you've asked is, how do the residents know all about this? And we're working on a program to make sure that residents know more than just what the TA has been provided and the property managers have been provided and what we've presented to the resident board meetings. So we're going to try to get out more information to everybody. And that includes the elevator lobby talks that we do, and the signage that we put in the elevators. But again, probably more signage, more conversation, more information on apps is always better, so that way residents can at least talk and know what's going on in their development.
So far, I haven't seen a lot of that, but, it's coming up, but it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because when you say road show, it sounds, when I was a kid, they would say, it sounds like a carnival.
So I apologize on the terminology.
You're bringing magicians and everybody.
No, we're no
I'm just saying, no,
nothing is up my sleeves. What we're trying to do
you told me
is to present.
But okay,
Yeah.
because it means a lot when people, misinformation comes, people see things done, and the sooner, you said soon, soon as possible, you can get that out there, and these residents will feel engaged in what's going on around them.
Yeah.
Most of these things are set in stone. This work is going to be done, I'm sure.
But
That's it.
Commissioner, some of the signage options that Steve and I are talking about, I want to have signage on the construction sheds, or the sidewalk sheds, that say, okay, here's why it went up, here's what we estimate in terms of timing, just something to give people a cue as to why the thing is there, because when we have the 24-hour notice and it goes up, it's like suddenly magically you're trucked. So that's another thing. We've talked about lobby notifications of various kinds. Last night, for example, we were at Fulton and Elliott's and Chelsea meeting, and we had a presentation which made me think about how you could see what work had been done at Fulton by Capital. You could see any work that was in progress, and you could see what was proposed. So some form of that, where that information's available at the property level, or you can access it easily, that's what we're working towards. Because I think if I'm sitting where you're sitting, or sitting in my apartment, I can't see that we did $800 million, because it might not have come to my apartment or my building. But but so what is coming to that unit, to our place? What's our home going to be impacted by? So this is a work in progress. We're going to do the monthly updates, And then the other things we'd like to do when we bring the capital information to you is talk about the different ideas we have for noticing the residents, so we can begin to discuss that with the board and also get your feedback along with their feedback.
Okay, thank you. And Steve, with the hiccups, please bring water.
Yeah.
Because, you know, things happen. That's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
So you touched on something that I was gonna ask about, which was local law 11. What kind of an impact has local law 11 gonna have on this funding due to the fact that sometimes when these sheds go up, the work doesn't start, and then we're being billed for having those sheds up. And then there's the other part, if the work can't be done for whatever reason, whether it's the weather or what have you, have we built in some kind of system that will not cause a big expenditure on the local law 11 issue?
Thank you for that question. Local Law 11 is probably one of our toughest portfolios, and I will explain it this way. It is a local law for facade repair. There are specific mandates that are associated to that. So when we do our reports, which our reports are due every 5 years, and if you would like, I should potentially just do a presentation on local law 11, but I'll be very brief. They're every 5 years, and when there is an unsafe condition, and that could be an AC unit that is improperly put in, or a crack that's happening on the wall, or potentially some mortar that is falling out. We immediately have to put up sheds, and those sheds go up. That doesn't mean that we have funding in place to do the facade repairs. The local law 11 portfolio is not capital eligible. It means it's not bond money. Majority of the funding that we receive is bond money. It's attached to a bond, we're borrowing that money. The city is borrowing that money. And there are specific, strict rules associated to that. Local law 11, for the most part, I think 90% of it is not capital eligible, which means that we have to use direct expense costs, tax levy dollars. Those tax levy dollars are very difficult to come by because that's what the city pays their firemen, their police officers, all of the salaries associated to that. And so it's always a discussion on how we can make sure that we get enough local law 11 money to take care of the projects that we have. But in the meantime, we definitely have sidewalk sheds that are going to stay up until the issue is taken care of. There was a new legislation on local law 11, a new rule change, and we've been speaking with our partners to make sure that those new rule changes do not acerbate the situation. But we do believe that we're going to probably have sidewalk sheds up a lot more and in a lot more places because of the new rules.
And Steve, is it correct to say that a lot of the facade work would have to be federal? Is that wrong view? In other words, because of the limitations on the money we get, local bond money, would we be spending federal dollars on facade work as opposed to?
So we are. So if on the new 5-year capital plan, you'll notice that we have allocated local law 11 federal funds to do facade repair. The amounts are staggering, and it's looking at the overall pie and seeing where we need to move those funds. I'll add one more wrinkle to this, is that, again, all of our projects are through mostly bond money. So if I look at, let's say, for example, the heating program, we have to pull these things apart. This is all about accounting. And some of those items won't be bond eligible. They won't be capital eligible. Like a temporary boiler is not capital eligible. So we actually use federal funds to pay for, to make a project whole, the non-bond money projects, because you can't replace a boiler without having a temporary boiler, because you'd have an outage for an entire year. That just doesn't make sense. But we understand the bond piece to it, so we leverage federal funds to pay for those other pieces that are not bond eligible, and we work with our partners across at OMB They're amazing to help us figure out all of the pieces and all the legislation associated to bonds to do that. And that's where we leverage a lot of those federal dollars.
So in essence, the impact that this local law 11 will have on our spending it's still an unknown factor. We can't put a number to it, and we can't prepare for it. We just have to deal with it as we roll along. Is that a good assessment?
No, we actually do put a number to that. We
do?
track it and we watch it and we allocate a certain portion of our budget to that. We work with City Hall
Okay.
and to get some funds over to that to take care of it. But I will say it's a big chunk of money, and we can do a presentation on just local law 11 alone if you would like at some point in time in the
And
future.
I think, Commissioner, what you're seeing is we have facade work budgeted, and the facade work need far exceeds what we have in the pot to spend.
Right.
Whether we're able to spend city money or federal money, the numbers on the outside work are daunting. So I think we could we'll do a local, we'll have a capital moment at the board meeting so that we can update the commissioners on these kinds of things. Any other comments or questions here on cap? Thank you, that was very helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now proceed with temporary board approved suspension reports. As a background, in 2018 and 2019, the board approved the temporary suspension of certain authority approvals required by both the bylaws and the contract procedure resolution. Those resolutions also required the monthly and the quarterly reporting by the departments of the number of contracts awarded and for the change orders, or I guess now funded increases entered into since the suspension. So we have two presentations, one by CPD that will address two of the resolutions, and the other by Healthy Homes that will address the others. So we'll start.
Thank you again. So in addition to those two slides, those dashboards that we'll be providing you each month, we're also going to just provide you a one-pager on where we are with each of these two projects. We have two projects in which there was temporary suspension of the approvals, and we appreciate the board for doing that. That allowed us to move the procurement a lot faster in those scenarios. The first one I wanted to say is the $200 million for the that were city funds for the heating plant program. The 9 contracts for 11 developments were approved. I think we've presented this each week, but design started back in mid-March 2018 and work is completed in September 2018. It's about 6 months. They were bid and published. In November, we received those bids back. We approved all 9. For the bid was $257,345,159. The 200 came from the city. The remaining $57,345,159 was financed with federal funds. We are a little bit ahead of schedule on the OMB and the comptroller piece to that. Construction began this winter with temporary boilers at all sites except for 2, which we're moving those temporary boilers in, and abatement has started on that. We are on schedule on all of that, and the construction is still on track to be completed in 2022 and 2023. The second item was our weatherization program through our energy and sustainability. The goal was to secure $30 million in New York State Weatherization Assistance Program by 2025. Since the board provided us in September of 2019 the ability to suspend coming to each of these, we have awarded 3 for a total of $549,236.62. And basically, the scope is for the weatherization program is apartment and common area lighting upgrades at all developments that are associated to this program, ventilation improvements, replacing inefficient refrigerators at those developments. There's some window replacement at Pennsylvania Avenue, as well as Ocean Hill and Brownsville. And the idea is that we have audits started in October through December for 3 months. Construction is starting in February this month, and then we hope that all the construction associated would be done in June. That program is currently on schedule. Thank you very much.
Good morning, board members, chair, GM. My name is Vlada Knif. I'm the Senior Director of the Office of Mold Assessment Remediation. We took a page out of the Capitals book and also asked for a suspension, which you approved in October of 2019, at the end of October. For the reasons of the same, we have to execute many of our contracts very quickly as a subject to the HUD agreement and the bias consent decree, and also because mold is a very serious health concern for our residents. And so we are currently do not have any contracts, but wanted to give you an update on where we're heading. We are planning to solicit 5 ventilation contracts by the next time we meet. We are required to report quarterly to you on these contracts, so we'll be able to talk next time about the 5 ventilation contracts and 3 mold assessor and remediator contracts. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Assessment is different from removal, right? Assessment is identifying the problem, and removal is actually taking care of it.
That's correct.
Because I had 14 residents reach out to me from Eastville and Wilson houses, and they were amazed how the people came in and assessed their walls, answered questions, how professional they were, and gave them an immediate, just an immediate result of what area might be affected.
Good.
And would be followed up with a report. They were very happy with whoever that vendor was.
That's great.
I only talked to 14. That was out of, big development, but
We'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, so we have a couple things in play. We have the Mold Busters program that we've implemented, which separates assessment and remediation. And we also have these contracts in place. We have 2 in place now. And there are exactly what you're describing. We first have an assessment, a report, a remediation plan. We communicate it to the resident, and then the next part is the actual remediation.
And it seemed that fit into the time frame. I wrote it down, but I didn't bring it when Mr. Razul did his presentation. Thank you. And it seemed to fit in that time frame, but I wrote it down. I could give you the exact time frame when he said that they were moving ahead.
Great.
And he was very methodical, but
great.
In his presentation talking about it. But those residents there said that they came in with the machines, examined the walls, answered questions. Like I said, they were very happy with that. So
Great. And we'll continue to do this. We're, I think, poised to, we have a couple contracts in place, and the same kinds of contracts will be coming out. We are hopeful to meet the requirements of the HUD agreement within a year and a half, so we're very aggressive in trying to implement both the ventilation, mold assessment, remediation contracts.
The vent work, is that the cleaning and the fans, or is that both? Or just
It's both.
Both,
It's
okay.
both cleaning of the laterals in each unit
Right.
in the development and replacing the roof fans from the belt-driven systems to direct drive.
Okay. And
Thank
can
you.
I ask, a lot of times when I'm in the property and I'll look at the vent face is painted like 50 times. So it weighs, it probably weighs 20 pounds to take it off of there. But when we do this, we take that off, we're coming in from the apartment side.
That's correct.
Okay, so then do we put the same one back on, or do we give them a new one?
No, it'll be a new one. It'll also
Okay.
include a fire damper in it, and so it's according to code. We're working with Capital to figure out the exact requirements and the filing, but it is up to
So
the
that
DOB
would be a
code.
little valve thing, that gate that would shut to keep
There's a
the-
fusible link, yes.
so
and
that the fire can't feet off the fence? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yep. All right.
We'll now proceed with calendar items 1 through 27.
Good morning. I'm Bob Morano, NYCHA's Chief Information Officer. Item 1 is requesting to amend an agreement with Dell Marketing LP for Microsoft products and services. From desktop operating systems like Windows 10 to cloud-based productivity tools like Office 365, SharePoint, the bulk of the authority's computing infrastructure is based on Microsoft products. This amendment is required because we have expanded the ability for all users to have access to Office 365. We are also upgrading our existing licenses to increase security functions such as multi-factor authentication, and we continue our migration of servers at 90 Church Street to the Microsoft Azure cloud. Any questions on this item?
I had previously asked about the customer reviews revolving Dell outside the agency, city agency, that there was numerous complaints about their product servicing, delivery of services, not following up more on their warranties. It was a total of 127. These were customer related reviews and comments, and to the Better Business Bureau. And I think you said that was being our work history with them would be provided what they did for us, history, and I haven't seen that.
Oh, I thought we provided that and
Was
sent it.
provided an email yesterday. To all board
Okay,
members.
all right, okay.
We've had well, first of all, this is for Microsoft products. So Dell is a reseller of Microsoft products under New York State OGS. Microsoft would rather have a company like Dell do their paperwork for them, and that's why we deal with them. And all the city agencies pretty much go through OGS for their contracts like this. So we are really buying Microsoft products. So it's a pass-through. So our agreements are really with Microsoft. So it's their support and their everything else. But we also Dell is a big product that we use here. We have Dell servers in our computer room, and we have Dell desktops, and we've had very good success with them over the past 8 years.
So, Bob, have we had issues with the vendor along the lines that the commissioner described?
No, we've been very good with them. Yes,
we've had good performance.
and you have to also separate. We are we're a company. We are an authority, and you might be looking at the consumer market, right? So the consumer market of somebody buying a Dell machine off of Amazon or something like that, as opposed to a government contract where they're a lot more rigorous in their support.
And this change will get us, it includes, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. We have the licensing fees. This is for all the users, which would be a large number.
11,500.
Right. Then we have some service components in this as well for the various softwares and that kind of thing.
Support, yes. If anything goes wrong, if you have any issue with anything.
Right.
So this is the whole contract for Microsoft. This is SQL Server, SharePoint.
So it's hardware.
All licensing.
Okay. And
yeah.
how long a period will we be? Will this cover us?
This will bring us to November of this year, at which time we are working on a new agreement with Microsoft, and we'll bring that to the board in November of 20.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Yes,
The only thing I have is a comment. Thank you for listening to the concern I had about the current way it's presented and the slight inconvenience that we have, and you're going to be looking into it. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll skip item 2 for now and back to it. We'll move to 3 and 4.
Good morning. My name is Rasul Azanijad. I'm the VP for Healthy Home. I'm here to request the authorization to ratify the award of 2 IDIQ contract for lead-based paint abatement. The first vendor is Sherwani, and this contract is basically for all the abatement that NYCHA need in order to ongoing our XRF initiative that we are testing, and we are creating work order for abatement, also for abatement of Health Department, CODA issues for abatement of child poisonous cases, and also for abatement of lead-based paint for move-out. When we test on the move-out, we test the apartment to make sure if there is a lead-based paint, we abate before we turn it over to new residents. This IQ, as I say, Sherwan is one of the vendors, and Joseph Environmental is the second vendor. This IDIQ max is about $5 million for each contract. It's a 2-year contract with the option of renewal of 1 more additional year. The VNC for these 2 vendors are okay as of December 30th for Shawani. It was vetted out and they're okay. And also on December 16th for Joseph Environmental, the VNC came clear and we are okay to proceed with their work. Any questions?
So Razul, we can, once these are in place, we could task order the different vendors to
do what?
and we can choose among them.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that, you know, we could have one working over here and then task order somebody over here and so that, and we'll be following right behind the XRF stuff with these vendors.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if I may add this, we already have 1 contract in place for lead abatement.
Right.
So this will give us a total of 3. Right, there are plans to increase that number going
Right.
forward.
Going
I
forward,
think,
okay.
yeah, we need a lot more vendors, but this is only to start.
Right.
Originally, we put this contract at $10 million originally, but we only got a few bids, so the suggestion was to lower it a little bit to see if other additional vendor we can get into bid on this contract. So we got 2 now, but we need a lot more in order to comply with all the abatement.
Right. We are also exploring smaller contracts for MWBE vendors
Right.
To bid on.
We put in additional 15 small contracts to invite the MWE contractor that they do an abatement. We got a list from Small Business Services.
Oh, good.
So we're trying to take
What's the
that
size,
up.
if I could ask, what's the size of the?
We want to go about $750,000.
Okay.
But we'll see if we can get some of these smaller contractor MWE.
450,000.
Oh, 450, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Under the
Okay.
500 mark.
Right under the, okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items 5 through 9.
Good morning again. Items 5 through 9 are capital. Item 5 is a recovery and resiliency program. This is the last major procurement for recovery and resiliency. Congratulations to the recovery and resiliency team. It looks
So we're
like
almost fully recovered and can come out of therapy, so.
there were, I think, around 30 major projects, as we're going to call them, and then, of course, hundreds of smaller projects. This particular contract, we're seeking the authorization to award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The bidder is MLJ Contracting Corporation for the restoration associated to Surf Song Gardens, O'Dwyer Gardens, and Coney Island 1 Site 8. The amount is for $186 million, 800,000, and there will be 11 Section 3 hires.
Just a quick question, how close were you on your estimate?
Excuse me for 1 second. The variance was about 6%, 6.09% from the cost estimate. Item number 6. Item number 6, we're seeking the authorization to award this contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Roma Scaffolding, Inc., or Roma, for the roof replacement and rooftop structure renovation at Bervoet Houses in the amount of $22,845,000. This, there was a variance of 6.49% from the original cost estimate, and they are looking to have 8 Section 3 hires. This is part of the Mayor's Roofing Initiative, tranche number 4. Item number 7, we seek the authorization to ratify a change order in the amount of $4,375,046.28. This is for Roma scaffolding for roof replacement and rooftop structure renovation at East Chester Gardens. This is a case in which, while during construction, there were some unforeseen conditions associated to the edge condition of the roof as we were doing those renovations, and we need to replace that edge condition when we were doing the field surveys. Item number 8. This is an authorization for a funding increase. This is to the retainer agreement with Nixon Peabody LLP. They are a law firm, and they are providing legal services for in connection to the design, build, and construction management at risk project delivery methods. So they are currently assisting us with all of the legal issues and legislative issues associated to the current RFQ/RFP program, and we're asking to increase their not to exceed number by $700,000. The last item for capital is that we seek authorization to amend the board resolution 19-731-7, which authorized the award of a contract of roofing and railing replacement rooftop structure. This was a renovation at Forest Houses. The amount was $15,760,735. Excuse me. The request here is that this funding was originally city funds, and we're asking to those to be moved over to federal funds to move this project along. Unfortunately, during the process, that flow chart that I showed you, the VNC expired during the comptroller's registration review, and in order for us to meet our deadlines of the roofing program, as well as our deadlines internally on the monitor pieces to provide these roofs, we needed to swap funding out so that way we could immediately start doing this work. We are currently working with our partners in order to make sure that we can expedite the review of the VNCs, the vendor name checks, as well as the registration of these contracts, so that we do not get in a bind with the contractor, the terms of their bid, and being able to get this work on the street and constructed, so that way we can support our residents.
So on this particular item, we went through the process, we were delayed at the controller's office, and to the point where the vendor name check expired. Am I
Correct.
hearing correctly?
Yep.
And was that the result of an exchange we had to sort of, what kept us from getting it through? Is there, do you have a sense of that? I'm just trying to figure out why we got a delay here.
I think there's a couple of different pieces to this, but there's a process by which the comptroller reviews a number of the items according to that contract. And during that review process, which is set at a cap 30 days, but then if a question comes in, then it starts that clock over again. Questions come in, we answer those questions. Capital, as well as our partners in finance and the law department, try to get those answers back to them within 24 hours, and then the clock starts again. Unfortunately, during that time period that it was at the comptroller's, the VNC, which depending on the type is either good for 9 months, that was not, that it expired, and then that would have rejected the page immediately with the comptroller. So we have about $71 million that has been recently rejected from the comptroller, following similar concepts where over the time that it was at the comptroller, either a VNC expired or there's a couple of other items, and that we've now are taking those contracts and bringing them back. We work with MOX as well as the IG's office to continually update those VNCs, but they're good through that 9-month period and then is when you renew the VNC. So if we've got 5 months on that VNC and then we submit it to the comptroller and it takes longer than 4 months, then we're going to get into a position where the VNC has expired.
Do you feel it's worth the conversation with the controller on making sure that we can get through that process effectively?
Yep. Most definitely. We're working with all of our partners right now to make sure that those processes move faster, and that we make sure that we're giving them the resources in terms of the information that they need, so that way they can do their job to get them through. We are corresponding with the comptroller on different levels, and City Hall is assisting us with that as well to try to break this logjam. Currently, there's about $40 million of our contracts at the comptroller's office. So as soon as the board approves the piece, it then goes over to the comptroller for the registration of contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item number 2 and 10 through 26.
All right, good morning, board members, Chair, GM. I'm Joe Cortine, VP of Operations. Item number 2 is a request to ratify the award as an IDIQ contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is A&S Kitchens, LLC, for the purchase and delivery of kitchen cabinets in various locations citywide in the amount of $4,190,492. Any questions?
So, if you had to think about, if we award this, how many kitchens do we think this represents? Or is it kitchens and bath, or just kitchen?
It's just kitchen cabinets.
Just kitchen cabinets.
Just kitchen cabinets.
Do we have any sense of what this might buy us, or?
What it equals, offhand, I couldn't tell you
Okay.
that.
I mean, but
Sorry.
you could give us a.
We could try to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, at some point, I just want to see the spec we use, if I could, and maybe some pictures of it. And I don't need it today, but would help me.
Sure. Going to item number 10. This is requesting approval to award this IDIQ contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Visual Millwork and Fixture Manufacturing Incorporated, for the purchase and delivery of kitchen countertops in the amount of $1,338,889 with a 1-year renewal option on the contract. Item number 11 is requesting approval to ratify the award of a requirement contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Big Apple Elevator Service Consulting, LLC. This provides for a 2 6-month renewal options, various locations citywide for the installation of elevator door lock monitoring systems. This particular one, number 11, is for Manhattan in the amount of $5,376,316.29 with 2 projected Section 3 hires. Yes.
I'm sorry, how does this work? How do these things actually work?
It piggybacks on the elevator system and monitors the locks on the doors so that to ensure that they're engaged, the doors are engaged before the elevator moves.
Okay.
So you don't have a gap in the door,
Right. You can't
and even
get-
the hatch door on the top, that you don't have someone, arm, leg, or any
Right.
items that might go down through the shaft with the car not
So
being
the
in
car
place.
can't move unless the lock's engaged.
Right, so
All
until
right.
it engages, the car can't move on, and as well as, if there's anywhere in the system there's an opening, the elevator car won't move.
Okay, thank you.
It's like completing a circuit, basically, right? The circuit's incomplete, it doesn't move.
thank you for providing the information regarding the elevator company. They're right in tune what I said they got top reviews. They got a 5 out of 5 based on the information you passed along. Besides the incident I'm not even gonna mention, but it seems that they're very viable and it's right in tune what I was able to research. So thank you for passing it back.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Yes.
Mine was, and I think I asked this just to be on the safe side. So we're speaking of open doors, elevators not moving up or down while this is in control. So does that address the issue of the elevators jerking before they get to the level of the floor?
No, no, it's a separate
That's a separate
control.
issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Number 12, 13, and 14 are similar items to the same control type system. This one is for, to ratify the contract, and this contract is for the Bronx, for the installation of a door locking monitoring system, elevator door locking monitoring system. And again, Big Apple Elevator Service Consulting Incorporated, in the amount of $3,397,000, $3,397,000, $50.72, with the 2 6-month renewal options. Number 13 this is for the elevators in Queens, Staten Island, and again to Big Apple Service and Consulting LLC in the amount of $3,026,944.15 with 2 6-month renewal options. Number 14, again, for the installation of elevator door lock monitoring systems. This is in Brooklyn. And again, to Big Apple Elevator Service Consulting LLC in the amount of $10,075,060.57 with 2 6-month renewal options.
Will this, how much of the elevator portfolio will this cover?
And if you want to.
Hi, I think it's Joey Koch, Chief of Staff. I think it's about a third of our elevators is being done
With the combined,
for Big Apple, I believe it's a third of our elevators.
okay.
But these contracts will cover the entire portfolio.
Well, it depends on the elevator system. So this is specific to this. Each elevator is designed differently. We have about a third that the Big Apple contract covers, and this is a ratification, so they started last year.
They've started work,
Yeah.
right, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Number 15 is authorization requesting the approval for a funding increase to a requirement contract awarded to Beasler Painting Incorporated for the maintenance and painting of apartments with a 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option for Throgsneck Addition and Randall Avenue, Balcom Avenue, in the amount of $85,516.09. It commenced on February 16th, 2018, continuing on through February 15th of 2021. Item number 16 is seeking authorization for approval for a funding increase for this requirement contract awarded to Speedo Corporation for maintenance and painting of apartments, which had an initial 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option commencing in January 31st, 2019 through January 30th, 2022, at Morris 1 and Morris 2 houses in the amount of $1,049,366. Item number 17 is seeking approval for a funding increase to a requirement contract awarded to JP Handa Construction Incorporated for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tiles in apartments for initial 1-year term with a 6-month renewal option commencing on March 12th of 2019, continuing through September 11th of 2020 at Parkside and Gun Hill in the amount of $35,604. Item number 18 is seeking approval for a funding increase to requirement contract awarded to USA 2 Construction Incorporated for removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tile in apartments. This is for a one-year term with a 6-month renewal option commencing January 11th of 2020, continuing on through July 10th of 2020. In the amount of $25,092.56. The locations are Forest, McKinley, and Eagle Avenue, East 163rd Street. Item number 19 is seeking approval for a funding increase to an agreement with National Industries for the Blind for the purchase and delivery of safety and security gloves. This was a 3-year term contract that commenced on August 1st of 2017 and is continuing on through July 31st of 2020, various citywide locations, in the amount of $84,332. Item number 20 is seeking approval for a funding increase to a requirement contract awarded to National Industries for the Blind for the purchase of male and female-sized winter-summer uniforms for a 3-year term contract. Wrote to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the 3-year term, which commenced on November 15th of 2017 and continues on through November 14th of 2020 in the amount of $242,387.87. Citywide, sorry, thank you. Item 21 is seeking to approve a funding increase to a requirement contract awarded to United Supply Corporation for the purchase and delivery of cleaner, degreaser, and simple green janitorial supplies, which was for a 3-year term, in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of this contract, commencing on August 1st of 2017, continuing on through July 31st of 2020, citywide, in the amount of $70,732. Item number 22 is seeking approval for a funding increase to the requirement contract awarded to New York Boiler Incorporated for boiler welding and repair services. It's a 2-year term contract with a 1-year renewal, commenced on June 7th, 2018, and continuing on through June 6th of 2021 at various Brooklyn locations in the amount of $985,304.70. Item number 23 is seeking approval for a funding increase to this requirement contract awarded to Dirty Gloves Drain Services, LLC, for sewer rotting and water jetting, which includes closed-circuit television camera inspection. As an initial 2-year term contract with a 1-year renewal, commencing on May 11th, 2018 through May 10th of 2021, various Queens and Staten Island locations in the amount of $141,859. Item number 24 is seeking approval for a funding increase to requirement contract awarded to Campbell's Professional Services, LLC, for janitorial cleaning and debris removal. It's in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year contract with a 1-year renewal option, which commenced on February 19th of 2019 through February 18th of 2022, various Queens and Staten Island locations in the amount of $158,169. Item number 21. I'm sorry, 25, I'm going backwards. Is seeking approval for a funding increase to a requirement contract awarded to United Eagle Renovations Incorporated for acid wash of concrete in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year term and a 1-year renewal option, which commenced September 14th, 2018 through September 13th of 2021, various Brooklyn locations in the amount of $80,000. Item number 26 is seeking approval for a funding increase to an agreement with Intech 21 Incorporated for software and hardware support and maintenance services of the authority's computerized heating automation system. Has a 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option, which commenced on March 28th, 2018, and continues on through March 27th of 2021, citywide, in the amount of $438,106.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just one
Thank you,
question,
Joe.
Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was, when you finished, when you, I just wanted to say
Okay,
something.
thank you, Joe.
Just want to say something, Madam Secretary. On the, January 10th, there was a heat issue at Morris Houses at 1343 Washington Avenue. And I referred that to y'all, and it was resolved in an hour and 10 minutes. And the HPT that responded was there on a 24-hour rotation, like Ms. Concha stated in her presentation a while back, that proceeded to get the ball rolling, getting them heat. And she just wanted, it was 8 tenants, but the whole building was out, so I just wanted, they were very grateful to have somebody come within that time. It was 6:14, it came in at a little before 8. Yeah, the heat was fully was restored.
That's good to hear, thank you.
Okay, and it all goes back to what Ms. Koch was saying, trying to have that rotation of staff, the technology with the alert. I just want to say if you could tweak it a little bit and maybe get little updates in between the beginning and the end would be great, but whatever. But thank you, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 27.
Good morning. My name is Kelly McNeil. I'm General Counsel, and I will be presenting item 27 for your consideration. Authorization is requested to approve a funding increase to the retainer agreement with Hertzfeld and Rubin for outside counsel services, which did not require initial board authorization and is subsequently amended for the duration of the litigation to increase the not-to-exceed amount in the amount of $377,443 in order to fund the continued provision of services. As you may recall, the court approved the revised consent decree on Baez on November 29th, 2018, and this budget anticipates the future activities for the duration of the litigation. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chair, 27 items were presented for board approval. May I have a motion to approve the 27 items?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Being that all matters before the board today have been addressed, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. I'm astonished. You know what I think? I think the current controller oversteps
Larry Heller,
charter.
you came to get me this morning. I had to go to the bathroom so bad. No, you, huh? No, I know. I had meant to call you. I had meant to call you like Mariella, I had meant to call you like I usually